Hi there, this is my reaction, review, breakdown, analysis video for House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 3, The Burning Mill. Now, to start with, this is a mid-season setup episode. We knew that it isn't trying to be as great as the first two episodes of this season. That Episode 2 was arguably the best episode the franchise has ever produced. Clearly, it's on par with Episode 8 of Season 1, probably better in terms of consistency. And Rhaenyra the Cruel Episode 2 is a tough act to follow. That was mind-blowingly good. This is going to win them all the Emmys. That Episode 3 wasn't trying to be that, and it was doing necessary setup, and it did what it needed to do. Thankfully, other reviews are saying basically the same thing. It's not that it did anything wrong, it's just, dude, it's not a season premiere, it's not a season finale or a climax episode, it's a setup episode. We know that. And I like character beats and things. Everything doesn't need to be, oh my god, an assassination. It could just be a really nice scene. It was directed by Geeta Patel, who directed Episode 8 last year, and her cinematography is great. It's different from Claire Kilner, who tried to get... I've noticed the difference is Claire Kilner tries to get POV shots that could be from someone in the room or in the crowd, but you're supposed to be looking out of someone's eyes. Patel, I've noticed, likes using these sweeping camera shots or top-down crane shots. It's really her signature, which aren't meant to be through the eyes of any one character, but really show off that this is a fully realized world. That it's the opposite of focusing on the faces when you have these crane shots or Steadicam shots walking through the streets showing we actually built all of these sets, which is something Game of Thrones didn't do. So the two things are different styles. There's Kilner is planning that even in the funeral progress, we were looking through the eyes of people in the crowd in different shots. Patel wants to show off everything even more with a crane shot, different styles. And I like that we're alternating between the two. I don't want to pick one over the other. I want different episodes to have different cinematography like that, but still using actual cinematography and not just a bunch of tight close-ups. That's the director side of things, but may have noticed that the writer is David Hancock. He actually isn't a new writer as such, because it turns out he was a writing assistant and story editor back on Season 1. So he was physically present in the writer's room back last season. He just got promoted up to being credited with his own script now. So people knocking, oh, it's not as great as the last one. Of course, it's the writer's fault. It's no one's fault. It's a mid-season setup episode. And I think he did a decent job. The dialogue is great in a lot of the scenes. I think Hancock did fine, and he's not exactly a new guy either. Now, as is my pattern for these reviews, analysis, whatever videos, I've said that I try to keep it focused on a list of the 7 notable points about the episode, because 7 is a good number. 7 points, both good and bad. Just the 7 notable things we can do, and sometimes I cheat by lumping things together as well. Thematically, this is all one big point. I already split off and released, I already posted point 7 on the Rhaenyra Alicent meeting into its own standalone 24-minute video. So I want to get this out of the way. If you're going to complain about the Rhaenyra Alicent thing, please, I know it's hard to separate that out from the episode as a whole, but still, please focus most of your long-form comments about... you can mention it in a comment on here, but the comments dedicated to that were meant to be in the standalone video. That's why I split it off, because I want this video to be about the rest of the episode. Obviously, the review should be about the whole thing, but there was a reason I split the focus on that. So if you're talking about the whole episode in your comments or something, but I split it off for time, both viewing time and for the comments. Let's keep that to a minimum. If you want to talk about it, go to the other video. And again, I don't, blame Hancock for that. Obviously, something as big as let's have Rhaenyra meet Alicent by sneaking in as a septa is something Ryan Condal, the showrunner, came up with. It's not something Hancock is even in a position to suggest as one of the regular staff writers. What he does is more about specific lines of dialogue as the script writer. So that's on Condal and the other higher-ranking ones. That would have been point 7. I've already split it off. And again, because it was right at the end of the episode. But as for the rest of it, point 1 of 7. The main focus of this episode, titled The Burning Mill, is about the Riverlands. The Battle of the Burning Mill and the Riverlands and other stuff. And point 1, the Riverlands story was great. This is A level to me. I would change nothing. Some of you might get bored with Daemon having a conversation scene with Simon Strong. Oh, hell, to me, that dinner scene with Daemon and Simon was a standout moment. It's something that could have been straight from the book. That the dialogue, it had good dialogue, it had good characterization for both of them. It had a lot of world-building exposition and politics and background on Harrenhal, and they're also discussing the Blackwoods and Brackens. And another thing I really like is it conveyed that sense from the books of romanticism with a capital R. The whole Ozymandias, how the mighty have fallen from greatness thing, that this trope frequently uses ruins like Harrenhal, of how things have declined. And Simon Strong is played by Simon Russell Beale, I've heard he's a good actor, but I was really impressed with him on screen. Beale is considered one of the top 5 or so living British actors, mostly in terms of stage acting. He's a theater actor. But he's won a lot of awards, has a long career, and he's considered a legend, and he lived up to that. I wasn't even looking forward to Simon Strong in this show before he was cast. He's a minor character. Even if, you can say, he's not just some random person, he is tied to the main characters. He's Lionel Strong's uncle, Lionel from Season 1. He's the great uncle to major character Larys Clubfoot. But Beale really elevated this character, and I see why they cast him and expanded the role like that. So this was all perfect. Everything about the Harrenhal thing, how they show it off as this spooky castle with the haunted house direction. They said it's supposed to be like The Shining almost, is inspiring it. That they're talking about the backstory of Harrenhal, of how strong, stuff going on with the rest of the Riverlands, like the Tullys, old Lord Grover is on his deathbed, so they're doing whatever they want. The Blackwoods and Brackens are fighting each other. All of that. And Matt Smith himself, not to short him, he had really nice snarky scenes at the dinner thing, good acting in the nightmare scene too. Obviously it's not as intense as the fight with Rhaenyra last episode. Matt Smith's a great actor. He was consistently great throughout this. We didn't get much Alice Rivers yet. I mean, they tease her that she's on there, but they start us off with a mysterious sleepwalking dream scene. And this is the kind of magic stuff Game of Thrones would have cut out under Benioff and Weiss. That, we want soccer moms and football players. We intentionally cut the magic stuff to the bare minimum. They hated magic. They also hated dream scenes or flashbacks because they're hard to do. Because they're complicated. It's just when you make a list of everything and people would accept it at the time. Flashbacks are hard to do. No. They don't know how filmmaking works. They avoid things that are difficult, like montage, dream sequence, real cinematography. But just, what did you expect from 2 novelists with no prior experience working in the visual medium of television? It was the world's most expensive film school to us, so we avoided anything narratively complex like dream sequences or magic. We don't really need that fantasy stuff. They just wanted the faces. But we didn't get to see that much of Alice Rivers yet, but we know we will, so I can't really assess her yet. Though I will say I'm surprised that we got absolutely no look at her before the episode actually aired. Not from spy photos. They didn't even put her in trailers or the promo stills for this specific episode. Like, the first time we got a look at her and how they're going to visualize her was when the actual episode was airing. Any news sites, we got nothing on her prior to this. So I have to assess that more when she gets her full introduction in a subsequent episode. But, like I said, when I say the Riverlands storyline is point 1, the Riverlands storyline was amazing. I mean anything touching the Riverlands storyline. Because it's that the first battle of the war, field battle, has happened between the Blackwoods and Brackens, so everyone is discussing it in different things. Daemon at Harrenhal ends up discussing it. It's also in the Riverlands. He'll have to deal with them. In the books, this was straightforward, but I think it was a smart idea that what they're doing is to give Daemon more to do. His thing this season is the fractious Riverlords need to have their heads knocked together to set them towards a common goal. and that's what he'll be doing, of forcing them all to get into agreement and being a cohesive force. I get that, and it's actually a good idea. But the other stuff going on, like I said, some things that might tie in, I'm going out of order. A third thing tying in is, like, even the Green Council scene at the beginning, I lump in with the Riverlands, because they're talking about the Riverlands, and small council scenes are always good. Obviously, this isn't as good as the prior ones that had Otto in them, but still, they're talking about strategy, politics, there's good characterization in it. So I like the small council thing, but getting back to things that the other major part, of course, is the opening of the episode where we actually see the Blackwoods and Brackens sizing each other up, then the aftermath. I'm sorry I'm going in reverse here, but I was really happy we got the Battle of the Burning Mill, because months ago I feared it would be cut entirely, and it is irrelevant to me that we didn't see the actual battle. I mean, I would have hoped for that, and the way the books describe it in a little more detail, I had some hope for that, but yeah, it's a time and budget saver, but the real meat of these things is the planning and reasons behind it. I think you can make a war movie with just people pointing at maps, like a risk board, and saying, we're attacking here, oh no, we lost here, what are we going to do? Just filmed dramatically, you can do that. The important part was the setup to it, that you see these are two feuding families going back so long no one remembers why, the tension of them fighting over the border stones, the lead-up scene to that, and that it wasn't just, oh, well, we cut it for time, like, oh, hey, Tyrion got knocked in the head with a hammer and he slept through the whole thing, is really a cheat, versus they worked around this limit creatively, that they didn't just work around it, they incorporated it for art, that instead of just, oh, we'll mention the battle happened off screen, they effectively used a jump cut. That it's not just, oh, it was saving money, it's let's jump cut from the initial spark of the confrontation to then suddenly, and here's the aftermath with a huge battlefield of literally hundreds of corpses stretching away into the fields, how this feud between these two basically teenagers is just sparking off into all these people dying. Now war is devastating and people are taking sides between Rhaenyra and Aegon, in some cases just for their own local grievances. So it wasn't just a cost-saving thing, it's working within those constraints. I think they managed to turn it into art and have commentary on it, of jump cut to everyone dead. Some of you may be surprised I'm not upset we didn't get the major Blackwood characters from the book, but I've known for months we wouldn't, because I've been following the casting news closely, and I hope you guys tell me in the comments. I've told you I don't think we're getting the Blackwoods this year as characters. I think they're going to show it as a cameo, Blackwood Bracken fighting. Pretty much what we saw is pretty much what I was expecting. It was very weird how in the week since episode 2 showed a preview for this, just in those 7 days, there was like this huge Google spike, I checked, of people searching for Ben Blackwood. Because I check what is trending after an episode. It's usually what you'd expect. Like, it was a big Baela episode. People are looking for Baela. Or Blood and Cheese. It's the thing after this episode was Ben Blackwood. And then, because the news sites notice what's viral and then try to report on, well, what are people talking about? That usually makes sense. It just went viral of different, clickbait news sites talking about, well, who's Ben Blackwood? And that's a random Blackwood. His name is Davos Blackwood. He isn't the Ben Blackwood. And you could have checked this from the casting things and everything, that we knew there was no casting info for Ben Blackwood or his aunt, Black Alley Blackwood. Not yet. That's why I'm not upset, that I knew this is just a preview. Think about it, the way they filmed it, they leave open the option to introduce Ben and Allie in Season 3. I still hope for that. I don't think this truncates anything. It's just, like, Whispering Wood was off-screen in Game of Thrones Season 1, but they retroactively say, oh, this character was there on Robb's side fighting for him. You can bring in other people later. I'm fine with that. That it mattered more to me that we showed the setup, the political fallout, and that they have a character name drop later at Rhaenyra's council at the Battle of the Burning Mill, to establish that is what the name of this event was, clearly to not book readers. As an event for TV canon, that just because we didn't see all of it didn't mean these things didn't happen off screen. I'm fine with that, and because I was up to speed on the casting info, I wasn't expecting to see Ben or Black Alley. And if you're disappointed, maybe you should be trusting different news outlets that I was here saying don't expect them, we don't really think they're going to be here. Maybe you should stop. If you were keyed up for this from one of those viral looper screen rants of the world, maybe you should remove them from your news feed because they are just jumping on rumors or assumptions that this is just a guy. It's a male with black hair. What made you think he was Ben Blackwood? Ben Blackwood is an 11-year-old. They might have changed his age for the TV show, but nothing about this that they specifically honed in on this one guy as, well, he must be Ben Blackwood. Why him and not one of the other ones? It doesn't make sense. But anything involving the Riverlands storyline, which is all interconnected, the Battle of the Burning Mill, everyone's reactions to it at the Green Council, including Daemon at Harrenhal, in which he also does talk about the Blackwood Brackens. Everything with the Riverlands storyline was tier A this episode. That means I wouldn't change anything. Moving on. Point 2 out of 7. Baela and Rhaena actually got scenes of substance for the first time. Well, Baela got her first in, episode 1 she got some. I wish they'd do more. But at least they're finally starting to give them more scenes now, as was promised. There's only so much they can do within one episode, but they're doing it. It's just keep going. Not that I was worried, because we know from the books, and particularly from filming reports, that they'll be getting more to do when they felt underused last season. And I don't blame the show for that. Consider that for the adult versions, Bethany, Antonia, Phoebe Campbell, after the final time skip, Baela only had one dialogue scene in season 1. At the start of episode 8, when she's telling Uncle Vabond, watch out what you're saying to my grandmother with these accusations. That was one dialogue scene. She had another good one with Rhaenys that was the one deleted scene. They screened it at conventions, which we were like, why would you cut this? They said we didn't want to. They forced us into a time limit. On screen, she really only had one scene. That's why people love that deleted scene so much. This is a cool character. Why is she so underused? Phoebe Campbell, as post-time skip Rhaena, had no significant dialogue in season 1. Other than just Your Grace handing her a cup, and there was acting with, nonverbal looks at the council of, well, these are our dragon riders, and she looks sad. There's only so much you can do with that. So, yeah, this was literally the first episode where Phoebe Campbell had any dialogue. And it was really good. It was 2 scenes, but they were very well acted. And the nuance in it. Oh, by the way, Phoebe Campbell is non-binary, like Emma Darcy is, so they both use they, them pronouns, so just keep track of that. But 2 nice scenes. One with Rhaenyra herself when she says, I'm sending you away, and look, character connections, they're actually setting up my cousin, Jane Arryn, you'll be going with them. And then the whole big multi-part scene with Baela and Rhaena as they show her the eggs, and at first she's upset, and they go, no, we're really trusting you with the children, with our eggs, and you are our fallback plan, this is a big trust I'm putting in you. And even though, the one thing is, though, this is the last time we're going to see Baela and Rhaena reacting for a while, interacting with each other, because she's going to be in the Vale. And I still think they managed to put a decent amount of, backstory of the tension between that they like each other as sisters, but it's still, the younger sister syndrome of, oh, everyone ignores me, and everything they worked with that. I'm going to talk about this more in another video, because they actually had some interesting things to say in an interview about how we worked out the Baela and Rhaena dynamic as actors. And while it's nice that Condal did think we need to show Baela riding Moondancer, he actually gave them leeway they explained in the Screen Rant interview that we worked up, let's turn this into a Baela character beat, that she's this maverick like her father who will defy orders to go in and confirm that it was really Criston Cole, it must be their main army. And, hey, you don't play by the rules, but I get results, damn it! So that type of thing, like something Daemon would do. So they worked this out with the actors suggested it, and they agreed to it. They're not micromanaging them like Benioff and Weiss would. And just, the actresses actually put a lot of thought in these characters, and the writers and directors worked hand in hand with them, that they are really going to start setting them up more. So, wow, this was a lot of real Baela and Rhaena interaction, real dialogue. I mean, two big scenes. Baela had other stuff going on with Jace. Separate video going on about this, but that was also a highlight. That, and again, there's only so much you can do in a single episode, because they aren't the focus of this episode. But still, we got two really good scenes with these characters we felt were underused, because, well, we're dealing with blood and cheese for the first two episodes. It's mostly about the Greens up until now. Moving on to point 3 out of 7. Aegon's pub crawl through King's Landing. I said sometimes I combine things to make one point, that I realized that Aegon going to, it's called the Cock Inn, because there's a big statue of a rooster in front. The Cock Inn, which is apparently this big new set they've made for, this is showing the commoners of King's Landing. You make a tavern. As well as Sylvie's brothel. Now, some news sites said these were the same building. I don't think so. I think they're separate. Because, they thought it was implied Sylvie's brothel is, upstairs. That I don't think so. I think the Cock Inn is in Flea Bottom, at the bottom of the hill. Because, Sylvie has this high-end brothel that caters to the nobility. It's on the Street of Silk. That's at the top of the hill. They're not the same physical building, but it's a pub crawl, fine. Doesn't matter. But, it's a pub crawl. We went to the tavern, then we went to the expensive brothel. It's fine. Now, this is a twofer that they start there, they go to Sylvie's brothel. It's nice that they are really continuing to show off that King's Landing is more than just the Red Keep. I don't blame Season 1 for being focused so much on the Red Keep, because that's where the main characters live. It's really where the story was set, just due to the nature of the narrative. But they're expanding the world more. Even Game of Thrones didn't really show the small folk perspective that much. And, as I said at the beginning, Patel's camera work was amazing in this. That really long tracking shot, falling through the streets with Steadicams, then following Ulf showing off, we built this medieval tavern set, and all the people in it. And the comparisons to, it's like the tracking shot from Casino. And I hope someone makes a mashup for that, but there was good camera work with that, as were other scenes more subtle than this, but just great throughout. A couple of things here. I was late on my last videos, and right before the last episode I said, okay, here's the changing Kingsguard roster, because the Cargill twins are dead. Let's expect them to start promoting up people, and I thought we'd see, Giles Belgrave or something. And then, matter of hours later, it wasn't worth updating the video, that Aegon appointed his 3 frat boy friends to the Kingsguard. Which is fine. Like I said in my video, we never had a full count of all 7 replacements. Well, 3 plus the 3 or 4 replacements he needed to post. So maybe some of these guys will die. Maybe one will be replaced by Giles Belgrave. I'm wondering if Red Ned Waters is the TV show version of Marston Waters, who is actually a major recurring character. We'll see on that. I've speculated on this before, that he might be their version of Marston. But the numbers match up, by the way, that adding 3, now that Aric is dead, and we know that Rickard Thorne, I told you there were 2 stand-ins when Kristen was yelling at Aric. So we assume those are Giles and Willis Fell, plus Rickard Thorne. It adds up to 7. These 3 guys plus those 4, it still equals 7. It would be upsetting if they accidentally had 8 guys technically on the Kingsguard and weren't paying attention, but they were. It was 7 guys. That's why they had 3 of them. I thought they'd be hyping up more that Martin Rain is. They haven't actually mentioned in dialogue, I'm from House Rain. But I guess we'll see House Rain is alive more when we know from trailers that they're going to be showing the Lannister army marshalling at Golden Tooth. And they'll show other bannermen and stuff, so that's coming, I guess. But I like that they show with his Kingsguard, nonetheless, that he's not Joffrey. That the whole thing of, one of my squires before the war begins, we're letting him lose his virginity at a brothel, we're going to show him the night of his life. That he goes, okay, and he goes along with it. That Joffrey is incapable of kindness, and is literally a sociopath fond of torturing small animals. I like that quote, which they made up for the TV show, where Marjorie goes, his idea of fun, a gift would probably be a necklace with a string of sparrow heads on it. That he tortures cats, just murders them, that he is a monster, versus, Aegon's kind of a frat bro, he's this dude bro, but he's not the devil, he has humanized feelings, and Martin himself has talked about this, that's really good. that in his own way, he's capable of love and kindness. He's still, like a pig of a man towards women and stuff, but just in the scene where the fact that he goes to the squire, all right, tonight is all about you. That stuck with me. Joffrey would never say that he's genuinely trying to be nice to his other dude bros. This is their idea of a good time. Let's go out to get roaring drunk, then go to a brothel, and he's capable of being nice to them. And some people said the writing was inconsistent. I think it's just him being layered, that then we see him taunting Aemond and pulling him around. It's like, well, he's multi-layered. That you're seeing he is capable of being kind while at the same time taunting someone, just not ridiculously, but he's multi-layered, and I think the actor manages to sell that all those parts of that he's not this mustache-twirling villain. Oh, the other thing is that, thankfully enough people noticed this, that yes, as we saw in behind-the-scenes videos, Diana is back. The handmaid that he assaulted last season, some people thought maybe she was poisoned. She wasn't. She's a handmaid. She's a barmaid now there. And I did not notice this on my first watch-through, that I thought she was supposed to be standing near Aegon. She actually does that. Over his shoulder, she sets down and pours, refreshing his drink, but he doesn't turn to notice her. That the small folk are beneath notice, and she doesn't want him to notice her, so she just sneaks in, leaves it, then runs. That he doesn't notice that this woman she assaulted is under his nose. That they played it subtle like that, and I didn't even notice the first time I watched it. Also, I talked about this on Twitter. I was surprised that, and I checked with other people, on premiere night, despite the copious amount of full frontal nudity in this episode in the brothel scene, that little warning they put at the beginning of episodes didn't mention it whatsoever. Nudity, sexual content, those are usually separate things. All it said was profanity and violence. And I'm not saying this in the sense of, I'm clutching my pearls. It's, they release those content warning labels weeks in advance, like 2 weeks in advance. So we usually try to use those to figure out what's in a given episode. Or there must be a battle in this episode. Or, oh, I guess there's going to be another brothel scene in this. They'll see Diana again or something because we know she's worried. Or Sylvie or something. That he's trying to predict, well, what would be a nude scene that we know is happening from trailers and stuff. Is that happening this episode or not? And somehow they messed it up, didn't include that. So when they went to the brothel, I was surprised. I mean, even just the moment they walked in, well, wait a minute, they didn't say there'd be nudity in this episode. Then it was some of the most they've ever done. I mean, guys, obviously that wasn't really a real set of genitals that a woman was performing fellatio on. You can't show real penetration on screen in regular TV. That was a realistic-looking prosthetic. But they have fixed the content warnings since then, mind you. It was funny that they dropped the ball on that. For the Max thing, I heard Sky TV did, but... Oh, look, it's a brothel scene, again by a female director, and not just a 13-year-old boy's fan service with gender imbalance. I'm saying the point is that there's no gender imbalance, that Ewan Mitchell... Aemond, he confirmed that he went full frontal in this. That's really him. He didn't use a prosthetic. Which they have the option of doing. That, remember, in Game of Thrones Season 1, when Hodor runs up to Asha and he was just bathing so he doesn't have his pants? And that is actually a prosthetic penis. That isn't Christian Nairn. And that they've remarked on this and joked about it's a prosthetic. And there were interviews after the episode where the Geeta Patel interview where she explained, we gave him the option, but he said, no, I need to be in my character's headspace, and his headspace now is, I refuse to be intimidated by your taunting. I will boldly, slowly walk out fully naked while glaring at you guys to show how unafraid I am, as a power thing. So, good for him for being really invested in the role, I guess, that he, and, the issues these days, we have the intimacy coordinator stuff now that we didn't during Game of Thrones. I can't really blame Game of Thrones because it wasn't really an industry thing at the time. That doesn't mean we needed them. But we do. It's just the fact that if you're complaining, why didn't Game of Thrones have fire extinguishers? Well, none of the studios have fire extinguishers. Well, I'm not blaming you personally anymore, but that isn't a good thing. That isn't a good excuse that we didn't have, make sure there's an intimacy coordinator on set, that nothing iffy is going on, that everyone's okay with what they're doing, is just a common sense idea. So they talk about that in interviews. That was really him. I actually thought this was well handled in terms of the whole thing of the gender imbalance, female gaze, all of that, of just this became a point of embarrassment for Game of Thrones. So, but the bigger thing for me, though, is, and it's nice that they're showing this vulnerable side of Aemond with Sylvie. He's attracted to, he wants the maternal attention he doesn't really get. But the bigger thing for me was the inn scene with at the Cock Inn. I'm going to intermittently call it a tavern. Of just, hey, it's small folk goofing off at a bar or something, like it's the local dive bar. But that was nice. That and the way it was filmed a lot, with the huge tracking shot. When I'm working up to fumbling through my words and know I'm hurrying, is that I really liked how they introduced Ulf this episode. Because briefly in last episode, he was just pickpocketing someone, then noticed, whoa, they hung all the rat catchers. This is when he's more fully introduced. And it's fun watching reaction videos from TV-only viewers. I do that because I want to see, are there things people, like, I understand, I can't unlearn what I've learned, that I've read the book, I know what's happening. I like to watch reaction videos by people who haven't read the book to see, was there anything that was confusing, that I wouldn't think was confusing, but someone who didn't read it could be confusing. It's a good thing to do when you're doing any adaptation. Check, what do the non-book readers think of this? Does something need to be explained? Well, it was interesting watching those, that, like, I watched like a dozen reaction videos, and up to half of them think he's lying about being a Targaryen bastard, when he isn't. He does have some Targaryen blood. He doesn't really know exactly who, in the book he doesn't really know specifically what his parentage was, but he undeniably does have some Targaryen blood in him. And I like how that's a good thing, that half of the videos I saw thought he was lying. That it seems so ridiculous that this random drunk on the streets, the friendly drunk in Flea Bottom, says he's a Targaryen bastard, and like, why is that so implausible? Logically, they have bastards. You saw last season, Aegon has a bastard child at that fighting pit. That, well, yeah, they're bastards that we ignored. Why? That's how they got there. Is it that implausible? That, and he even says when they go, you don't even look, your facial features don't look that much like Viserys and Daemon. He goes, because I'm only their half-brother, logically I wouldn't look that similar to them. So I was surprised at how many people doubted him, and just, why do you think it's impossible? Like, plausible? There's a lot of people in the book who they leave it ambiguous whether they're Targaryen bastards or not. I'm thinking of Trystane, Truefire, but we'll get to that. I don't even know if he's in the show. But I like to think the Ulf's characterization that Bennett is actually a really good comedic actor. They made him this likable guy that I thought they were going to make him like this skullduggery, creepy guy. And it's just, he's the friendly barfly who everyone and everyone does when they go, hey, it's Ulf. And everyone knows his name, and it's this happy little pub there. One other thing I really liked about the sequence, though, is the man he's talking to when he sits down, the black man he's talking to is Elton John. Okay, he's not the Elton John. It's actor Samson Kayo from Emma Darcy's old show Truth Seekers. That right before House of the Dragon Season 1 premiered, Emma Darcy was mostly a theater actor, and they had done a few TV guest spots here and there, but Truth Seekers was the most prominent, most recent thing they'd been in. So casting was announced December of 2020, and Truth Seekers came out Halloween of 2020, end of October. So it was probably the most high profile as well as most recent thing Emma Darcy was in. So throughout the filming process on season 1, which stretched all through 2021, and then the show didn't even come out for 20 months later, from when the cast was announced until when it premiered. That was 20 months until August of 2022. Our big thing for trying to get a feel for what is Emma Darcy like as an actor was most of the spy reporter channels and news channels ended up watching Truth Seekers in that year and a half, because it's 8 episodes. So we checked out, this is what Emma Darcy is like. I didn't watch it that Christmas. I ended up watching it I think 6 months before the premiere, early 2022 is when I ended up watching it. Not that Christmas, the next Christmas. But we all checked out Truth Seekers, and it was a nice show. I'm sad that it didn't get another season. And the whole point of the show is it's Nick Frost is this ghost hunter with his new partner played by Samson Kayo, And their first real lead is when they run into this mysterious young woman, Astrid, played by Emma Darcy, who says she's being chased by ghosts. And Emma and Samson's characters actually are the main romantic pair of the show, so Emma had a lot of direct scenes with Samson. So it's fun that, it's friendly, that actor we liked from Emma's last project is getting a cameo in the show. I hope recurring character. We'll see what happens. I haven't really heard where they're going with this guy. Why did I say he's Elton John? If you haven't seen the show, it's a pseudonym. That the joke is that he introduces himself as, I'm Elton John. Well, Elton John is itself a pseudonym in real life, but there's this whole thing where the reveal is he legally changed his name to Elton John to hide from paparazzi who were chasing him for a secret from his past. And I actually think that's pretty clever, that if you're picking a pseudonym, if you pick something like Richard Taylor or something, people will Google that and realize there's no record of this person before 5 years ago. But if you pick a really famous name, if they try to Google it, it'll just be flooded by other things. Reminds me of, I think it was Death Note, where he told him, my name is Michael Jackson. Just something that you can't Google it because it's the same as a famous person's name, like Elton John or Lionel Richie or something. He was hiding his real identity under a fake name. So that's why he's Elton John. But it was wonderful seeing him. He's a great comedic actor. I really like him. I hope he becomes a recurring character, and we'll see what happens with that. My guess is maybe he's like a boat captain who will take Ulf to meet Rhaenyra. I hope so, just so they can have a reunion on set again to see each other. 0.4 out of 7. They reintroduced Alicent's brother, Gwayne Hightower, who we briefly saw 20 years ago at the tournament in episode 1, played by, a stuntman, but we knew they'd recast him because everyone got recast. It's been 20 years. It was played by a stuntman with a helmet on. Some of the TV-only reaction channels I've seen did go, wait a minute, they did say that Alicent had a brother, remember, in the tournament? So at least a few people remembered that. Actor Freddie Fox was great. He elevated what could have been a forgettable role. I really was not hyped for Gwayne Hightower. Just, it's Gwayne. It's just he was really good at it. I like how he's this posh, upper-class, condescending guy, and it's supposed to be funny, and he doesn't really know what he's doing, but he's not a cartoon character. What I mean is, he's funny to cringe at, but not so much that you hate him. That you can play the upper-class, condescending guy thing so hard that this guy is really hateable, I want him to die. It was more that he was laughable in that. And three-dimensional, like when Cole tells him, no, everyone rush for cover, that they're coming, and saves their lives, he does apologize. I'm sorry I was grilling you. You saved my life. I'm indebted to you. Again, George R. R. Martin writing that everyone's three-dimensional, that no one's a cartoon character or something. On top of that, I hope it was clear that, while he is going, you're a low-born steward's son, a step above a commoner, and Dornish, I hope it was clear that it's not that he is inherently a classist racist, but he is angry that Cole took his father's job as Hand of the King, and he's looking for things to insult him about. I'm not sure if he really is just like that all the time. He was looking for something to insult him about. But this could have been a forgettable character or an unlikable character, and instead he had really good presence. He's an experienced actor. Another thing is, if you check this out, it's going around online. Turns out Freddie Fox strongly resembles Rhys Ifans in his youth if he was unshaven. Go look at a photo of Rhys Ifans at that age, not with Otto's beard, and it is a striking resemblance. The casting director did a really good job that he looks like he could be his son. I wasn't too happy with this. I like the actor, and I know we're going to get more scenes with him, so I'm not really pushing this. I was hoping for him to have more screen time with Alicent, but I recognize that'll be coming in another episode. Also, that, like I said, I was looking forward to, wow, you just came from Old Town. How is my youngest son Daeron doing? I wanted Alicent to ask him about Daeron, but the season isn't over yet. Maybe that's happening next episode or episode 5 or something. They'll have him say, oh yeah, Daeron's a great kid. Something like that. But season's not over. It's just what they could fit in this episode. Also, I like that for Gwayne, Through passing mention, he established that they do not have the jetpacks for traveling around Westeros, like how Littlefinger was zipping around so much it broke believability. That Gwayne says, "I've been on the road for 3 months, from Old Town to King's Landing, during what seems a relative peace that no one on the Rose Road has openly declared for Rhaenyra and is blocking the highway." Westeros.org also noticed this and said that if anything, 3 months is a bit long for a small group going from Old Town to King's Landing. Small groups travel faster than armies. But then again, Elio and Linda themselves pointed out that Gwayne later makes it pretty clear that he was traveling at a pleasant, leisurely pace, that he must have been stopping at every comfy inn that happened to have good wine. And on top of that, I don't know if he was rushing to King's Landing. Preston Jacobs criticized this. If he was rushing, it could have taken as little as 3 weeks. Maybe he was also doing the diplomatic tour, where you have to, the Arasokar thing, where you have to stop and meet every lord on the way, telling them, hey, you better stick with the Hightowers. On his way that he was stopping making diplomatic meetings, I guess, so maybe he wasn't rushing to King's Landing. I'm not really angry if it takes them a long time to reach somewhere, because, hey, maybe he was going at a slow pace, maybe he was meeting with people. In terms of physical believability, what we get angry about is when people zip to the wall in a matter of hours from Blackwater Bay, as we saw in Season 7. But okay, it's not a problem if he's taking his sweet time, leisurely route, maybe meeting with people. It's if, I got there in 7 days would be absurd, whereas, I've been on the road for 3 months since I left Old Town, was a nice thing they're setting up there. So I liked Gwayne, really liked the actor. I wish we would see more of him, but we're going to see more of him in the season. It's always a problem you want to have when you're hungry to see more of a character, like, I like Baela and Rhaena's stuff in this episode, I wish we had more. That kind of thing. 0.5 out of 7. Both sides got a Master of Whispers in this episode. I think they meant that as a direct parallel. That Aegon promoted Larry Clubfoot up to be Master of Whisperers, and Rhaenyra let Mysaria have a spot on her small council, presumably as Mistress of Whisperers, as in the book. That Master of Whispers is the official spy master like Varys was, and I will say Mysaria has had consistently good scenes this season. I mean, not great, they're not knocking out of the park just due to the limits of the material. She's not being given stuff on the level of the small council scenes where, you idiot Aegon, you killed all the rat catchers, or Rhaenyra arguing with Daemon, that they're not meant to be on that scale. They're not meant to be these great hitting out of the park scenes, but they have all been consistently solid and good, with good writing, good characterization, and good acting from the cast members. That Mysaria with Sonoya Mizuno easily wins the most improved character award this season, after smoothing her out from Season 1, where I don't think again, Preston and Carmine have talked about this, that it doesn't feel like they really knew what to do with Mysaria in Season 1, and they didn't get a handle on her. They made her accent too exaggerated. I'm not sure if that was her decision or their decision, but whatever. I noticed this last episode, and now particularly this episode, wow, I actually look forward to Mysaria scenes now. So, not the greatest role on the show, but certainly the most improved, that this used to be a weak point of the show, and they have fixed it. But it's not, and again, with the other things we're going to talk about in other videos about, that they've actually stressed the importance of scouting with Baela, that it's important to have spy masters and intelligence networks, so you know what the other side is doing in terms of diplomacy, politics, which houses are getting to your side. Both sides in the Civil War need a dedicated spy master. And the thing is, in the book, Larry was already the spy master, but they made him. I'm actually going to make a short video about this, of just the history of the Master of Whisperers. And I like that they even have characterization from Mysaria, that she's going, that it is in my rational self-interest to help you. I'm not doing it because I think you're amazing, but she points out, logically, either you, Rhaenyra, and the Blacks are going to win, or the Greens are going to win. I have a choice between helping one side or the other, and you've shown clemency and that you're willing to help the commoners a little, and more importantly, the Greens trying to kill me. So I'm kind of faced with a binary choice between one or the other. I should probably help you guys, because what's the option? Let the Greens win? So that was all pretty good, the Master Whisper stuff. And point 6, this I was a little more on the fence about. All the other things up to this point I was okay with. The one scene Helena had in this episode with Alicent seemed odd, and it was a bit of a letdown. It wasn't bad, it's just I was expecting more. That I didn't know what they were going for with this scene, but on rewatch, I think it was meant to be odd, which made me feel better about it. That Helena was distraught last episode, and this is for my boy, and then that was before she even got traumatized by the panic attack she got during the funeral progress. And now she's such a good person, she's empathizing with the commoner children die more than noble-born ones. And who am I to resent them for feeling sympathy for me? And, children die, and just maybe she's, dissociating or something. But watching it, like, even Allison thought you were oddly calm about this. So I think they meant it that way, and we'll have to see where they're going with it. That I got the feeling they were going somewhere with this. Because it's different from the book. In the book, she just stops being a character after this point. She goes catatonic. And I thought it was a good idea to keep Helena on as a character by toning it down a bit. And, like, is she feeling happy because she's pregnant again? And, well, I lost a child, but I'll have another one soon, or something like that, that Maelor is coming? They said Maelor isn't there yet. Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. Wasn't a bad scene, it's just I got hyped up when the promo stills showed there'd be an Alicent-Helena scene, that they'd have, like, Alicent actually noticing that, wow, these open journals you have are filled with prophetic scribbles, and, like, the crane kills its own reflection. That's obviously the Cargill twins killing each other. Just, I got it in my head that they'd be talking about that more, and they really didn't. And it wasn't the scene I was expecting. I was expecting a high point just because Helena has been so amazing the first 2 episodes. Fia Saban's performance. And in his most recent blog post just yesterday, George R. R. Martin himself openly said, just as I admitted Paddy Considine's Viserys is better than the one I wrote in the book, this TV Helena is better than the simple character I wrote in the book, and I wish I'd written it. That this character, so that is his stamp of approval. That is amazing news. But he was talking about the first 2 episodes, and this was more just checking in on her. I think she's going to do other stuff this season, though, but we'll see where they're going with Helena. I didn't quite know what to make of that, but it's not over yet. That pretty much wraps it up for all 7 points, because like I said, I split off point 7 into a standalone video. My thoughts on Rhaenyra sneaking into King's Landing disguised as a septa. Others have talked about this, and short summary is, check out the full 24-minute video, but my reaction is the same one of other major book fan channels, specifically Westeros.org, Red Team Review and Preston, and Indie Geek. We have all said, it wasn't great, and it wasn't a highlight, but it didn't ruin the season or even ruin the episode. It was at best presentable and inoffensive. This wasn't the great thing they thought it would be. But we feel better that they said, we added this scene in order to wrap up the added subplot of Alicent mistaking Viserys wanted Aegon to be king. That we added something to it in order to end it. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying there. And it wasn't that bad. I thought I'd be possibly inventing something crazier, so my reaction was a sigh of relief. That I thought it'd be worse. It's homework, we're getting it out of the way, we're wrapping up that other thing. Didn't detract from it. Something being forgettable is a problem you want to have compared to so many worse things that keep you up at night, depending on what Weiss did. So, in summary, the highs and lows of the episode, some things were middling, like, I liked Baela, Rhaena, and Gwayne, but it left me wanting more, because they weren't the focus of the episode. Those are middling things that are neither high nor low. They were good. The high points were anything touching the Riverlands storyline. Everything Daemon was doing, the actual start at the Burning Mill, then when they're talking about the Blackwoods and Brackens, and when the Greens are talking about what are we going to do with the Small Council, that's all interrelated. That was all the high stuff. I did like Rhaenyra sending her children away and explaining to Rhaena, I am giving you, this is our future. That went up to being a high point, I guess. The low points were, I didn't know what to make of the Helena scene. I don't hate it now that I think they're going somewhere with it. And again, the Rhaenyra Alicent thing was a low point, but it wasn't like breaking the episode. It wasn't, we'll forget about it by next week. Because next week is the big battle episode. The Battle of Rook's Rest. That it's not always, it's so weird that even now, I don't think TV First viewers are ready for the big battle of the season is episode 4 out of 8, like a mid-season finale, that they keep going, oh no, it's the second to last episode. Even House of the Dragon season 1 didn't do that, where the big battle scene was episode 3. Well, there was a dragon fight in the finale, but that's not really the same scale in terms of the large-scale battle stuff. So episode 3 here, it was a mid-season setup episode. It wasn't trying to be great like a season premiere or season finale. I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, it's a bit of a coming down from the high of last episode, but that's to be expected. It did what it needed to do. And I just can't wait for that. So many people go, oh, there's all this setup and stuff. So many of the advanced screeners, people who got advanced screeners, said episode 4 is so great it might even make people forget about the Battle of the Bastards. It's like if you took Battle of the Bastards but had it run by competent writers who had good writing, as well as knew how to let the stunt coordinators do what they need to do, and it has dragons in it. And you see a little of that with Daemon in this episode, that Condal's talked about this, that we've learned how best to show off dragon warfare is basically do what Star Wars did with X-Wings, which was to copy how you show war movie stuff with dogfights and fighter planes in World War II. They have a POV shot from the dragon when Caraxes is flying into Harrenhal, where it's as if there was a camera behind Daemon looking perpendicular to where he's circling around Harrenhal. We saw a bit of that this episode, and also with Baela to an extent, but they said just in the trailer shots you can see of Rhaenys on Meleys that they are really going to show off. It's like gun camera footage from one dragon to another to show aerial combat really well that we haven't really seen before. So I'm sorry I'm getting this out so late. It was July 4th holiday. I was obviously out, family barbecue, catching up on the multiple little crises we had. Of every time there's something that's a crisis that I have to either yell about or diffuse, that I'm not hating on this. I made a standalone video for Alicent and Rhaenyra at the Sept. This took time. Or a separate video I made about the dragon eggs. This takes time away from working on the review itself. So here we are on Saturday, but I'm in on time. There's a couple of other lore things I want to work on. I'm trying to get back on track now that we're not dealing with holidays anymore. Also in the UK it was an election. Landslide victory for Labour. So everyone was really busy anyway, so here I am on the weekend at least. Imagine what they're going to do in the Battle of Rook's Rest. People will stop talking about the Battle of the Bastards as if it was somehow this pinnacle of writing when it wasn't.